Good morning. Thank you for being here. I hope our cosmic walk opened a little room for awe and mystery for you. What I like about the cosmic walk is how it weaves together science and a sense of unknowing that extends beyond science. As an interfaith minister, I often open times of prayer and reflections with a lot of words. Holy God, Spirit of life and love, universe, one who goes by many names and no names at all, that which is closest to us and yet is beyond our understanding. I do this for a few reasons. Because I like language, because I want to create as many on-ramps for people to feel welcome, and because I believe what a religious man might call God is truly beyond our knowing. And as a lifelong UU, I have laid myself at the altar of science and facts, sometimes to my detriment. While working towards my interfaith ordination, I read Huston Smith's Why Religion Matters. In his book, he argues there are three modes of human existence that each have relevant ways of knowing. The first he calls traditional. This is our pre-science ancestors who understood their world first through myth and ritual, only then grounding it in matter. From there, we have modern times, marked by scientific thought and breakthrough, where knowing comes from matter and what we can observe and prove. The third is postmodern, which raises ideas of justice and social equity. Huston is quick to point out in his critique of what he calls scientism, that many scientists believe in something more or beyond, some kind of mystery. But he cautions that when people become hardline in what they will accept as truth, other, more ancient ways of knowing get lost. Growing up, I was very afraid of dying. I also experienced panic attacks at a young age, which did nothing to help this fear. Part of what made death so scary for me was my belief that death was a full stop. Nothingness. Like sleep without dreams, end of consciousness. In his book, Staring at the Sun, Dr. Irvin Yalom posits that this belief might lessen death anxiety because once consciousness ends, one wouldn't exist to know about it. This was not the case for me. But then in my adult life, I started to work with death and dying. At first, I was nervous about being present for the actual moment of death. In my chaplaincy residency, my pager would go off, informing me of an actively dying patient. I would call the nurse and inquire, "How soon do you think it'll be?" And then I know if I could take the elevator or needed to take the long route with all the stairs. In truth, the first time I was present at the time of death, nothing particular happened. The earth did not move and the cosmos did not open. But over the years, the more dying people I tended to, the more I was there at the moment of death, the more I heard stories at grief support groups of how loved ones continue to visit and show up, I was able to start letting mystery in. Can I explain why people talk to or see their dead loved ones shortly before they die? Maybe they are ghosts. Maybe it's a psychological phenomenon. I have no answer except to say that death seems to be more than nothingness. A terminal patient I worked with over many months was excited for about what death would bring, his next great adventure. When I asked him to send me a sign from the other side, he laughed and said he didn't want to spoil the surprise. Human brains desire certainty because it is easier on the brain than uncertainty. Feeling more certain about the world around us, as though we understand something correctly and can therefore predict what will happen, leads to positive feelings of control and security. Sometimes when talking to patients, they will say things like, "It must be so hard for people who are dying if they don't believe in heaven." Being certain can give us a sense of peace and safety. It can prevent an overwhelm of existential dread that can derail our ability to function day to day. However, it is important to temper the desire for certainty with an openness to mystery and the possibility of things we don't know. Dr. Amy Johnson, in her article, "The Enormous Benefit of Seeing Life as a Mystery," says, "Our minds are so busy staring at what we think we already know that it's a bit harder for what we don't know to get past the gate." An episode of the podcast Radio Lab recently in November relates the story of a discovery of a part of our bodies that was invisible to Western scientists until about 5 years ago. It's called the interstitium. It is a vast network of fluid channels inside the tissues around our organs that scientists have just begun to see and understand. The episode explains that a doctor, David Carr Locke, got a new type of microscope that allowed him to see things inside our bodies that we otherwise haven't been able to see. He notices that the tissues that we have always thought were solid were in fact honeycomb-shaped. They're full of fluid and had little tubes that seem to connect all throughout our bodies. So he brings a picture of this to his pathologist friend, Neil Thies, to ask if he'd ever seen it before. The episode is absolutely fascinating, and I highly recommend listening to the whole thing. But to simplify for today, it turns out that there is a network of what is now called interstitium that runs throughout our bodies and carries fluid through it. Thies recalls that in his 30 years of doing pathology, he always saw the cracks in tissues in his slides. It was believed that these cracks in the tissue came from the process of preparing it for the slides, which involves dehydration, amongst other things. Two things stood out to me about this episode that relate to today's topic. The first is that the interstitium correlates to Eastern medicine concepts of meridians, and it is what is activated during acupuncture, providing relief to patients. It is something that Western medicine hadn't proved, but others who were more open to possibilities have been working with for centuries. The second is about how Thies talked about the discovery. It was something that he looked at day in and day out. In fact, it's revealed that you don't even need a microscope to see the interstitium in living tissues. He was told that the cracks in the tissues were from the preparation process and never would have questioned it. As Dr. Johnson said, our minds are so busy staring at what we think we already know that it's a bit harder for what we do know to get past the gate. So often when I give a sermon, I talk about how things can happen on different levels: universe level, world level, nation level, personal level. So here is where we take it to the individual. Most people want to be known. As Parker Palmer puts it, the human soul does not want to be advised or fixed or saved. It simply wants to be witnessed, to be seen and heard and companioned exactly as it is. The experience of acceptance and support for who we really are can be life-saving, especially for people with marginalized identities. It is the people who love us who see us most clearly. And love is something, honestly, whatever topic you give me to talk to on a Sunday, I will talk about love. Because for me, I think that's our highest spiritual calling. And finding more ways to be able to love each other, I think, is a big part of our spiritual involvement, maybe. So, Getting to know someone, we should start at a place of curiosity. Curiosity is a gift that mystery gives us. The desire to know more and to understand, even within a world that is often beyond our ability to know. I don't think it's possible that any one person has ever been fully understood in their whole complete totality by another person. We all have things that lay beyond other people's ability to know about us. And yet, it is important to not let what we think we know get in the way of what we don't know. As Miller Williams famously said, "Have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it." What seems conceit, bad manners, or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard and no eyes have seen. You do not know what wars are going on down there where spirit meets bone.